calls for today's meeting. Mr. Preston?
Good afternoon, Madam President, Commissioners, and Clint. With OUC's commitment to make safety first, we begin each commission meeting with a safety briefing in the event of an untimely emergency. We are located, of course, here at 100 West Anderson Street in the Commission chambers on the 7th floor. We have 3 exits to this room, both at the front, center, and back. If there is a need to evacuate the building, we will exit the nearest door and proceed to the stairwell to the right or left of the commission room. And our meeting place will be at the surface parking lot under the 408, just south of where we are located. We also have an AED and first aid kit in the sound closet. We also have fire extinguishers that are just outside in front of the vestibule doorways. And we have our 911 primary and backup, which will be LaShawnell Statham and myself. And our CPR primary and backup will be myself and Ryan Green. The security team will assist with directing emergency responders into the building and up to the 7th floor. That concludes our safety briefing for this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Erin Givens, will you please provide the moment of reflection?
Good afternoon. I am the manager of vegetation. Thank you for having me here today. As we enter March here in Central Florida, spring doesn't announce itself with a single moment, but reveals itself gradually. The days stretch a little longer, the soil warms, live oaks push out new leaves just as the old ones fall away, and landscapes that once looked brown only weeks ago start to show subtle signs of new green growth. Spring reminds us that renewal is often quiet, and that meaningful change takes time. In vegetation management, we see this every day. Healthy trees don't thrive because of one action, but because of many small, thoughtful decisions made consistently over time. Good soil, room for roots, directional pruning, respect for the space where natural growth and critical infrastructure coexist. Our work is about guiding growth so it remains safe, resilient, and sustainable. Growth that can withstand challenges like summer storms and hurricanes. The same principles apply to the work we do as an organization. OUC serves a growing region, and growth always brings responsibility. Just as we manage trees to protect reliability while preserving the canopy that defines our community, we're constantly balancing progress with stewardship. Spring offers a reminder that the strongest systems, whether natural or organizational, are those built with patience and foresight. In nature, pruning can look like a loss, but it's actually an act of preparation. By removing what no longer serves the whole, we allow strength and energy to flow where it's needed most. And in leadership, the same principles apply: refining priorities, adapting approaches, or creating space for new ideas to take root. Here in Florida, we know that preparation matters. The calm seasons are when we strengthen our roots and our systems. So we're ready when challenges come, whether that be a summer storm or moments of rapid change. The work done quietly and ahead of time is what allows us to remain steady when it matters most. My legs are shaking, so maybe I need a little encouragement here.
You're doing great.
It's funny to me. As we begin today's meeting, I invite us to carry the spirit of spring with us, a focus on renewal, balance, and long-term stewardship. Let's remember that even when progress isn't immediately visible, the care we invest now is what will help us grow in the future years to come. Thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful, thoughtful, and productive meeting.
Thank you so much.
Great job.
I would like to invite Aaron Fagan to come forward and lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Fagan served in the U.S. Navy for 8 years, achieving the rank of ES. Mr. Fagan has worked at OUC for 24 years, and his current title is Manager of Chilled Water Services.
Thank you, everyone.
I'll do my best to follow Aaron after that. I will do my best. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your service, Mr. Fagan, also. The time is now 2:04, and I call the March 3rd, 2026 Commission meeting to order. I'd like to acknowledge that Mayor Dyer and Commissioner Gross are not in attendance today, but we do have forum, and we will present this afternoon. I'd like to start off by welcoming Dr. Bridget Williams and Phil Brown as our new commissioners. They were elected by our board at our January 20th commission meeting, and the City Council confirmed both appointments to the board on January 26th. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is the consideration, we will defer approval of the minutes for the January 20th meeting for the April 7th meeting on April 7th, 2026. Mr. Adams, will you please provide the Employee Service Awards? Thank you.
Good afternoon. I would like to call Mr. Albert Cockerham to the front, please. If your wife, Karen, is present, she is more than welcome to come up along with your daughter, Catherine. Is your daughter here? Okay. You weren't gonna sit there. Right. No. Albert is celebrating 30 years of service here at OUC. Wow. So what I'd like to do, and my knees are shaking too, by the way, if Aaron is here. I like to kind of chronicle how people came to OUC. So many of us probably remember Julio Rivero, who used to work here at OUC. Julio and Albert worked at Sunbank together many moons ago. Julio told him that Sunbank was his part-time job, but OUC was actually his full-time job. And Julio would always tell Albert what a great place it was to work here at OUC. So later on, Albert started working at another bank, and lo and behold, Rich McCoy, a current OUC employee, also worked at that bank. Rich was a meter tech at the time, and also told Albert that, hey, you should probably look at working at OUC because it's such a great place to work. So Albert knew he either wanted to be a community service officer or work at OUC. So he applied for both. Thankfully for us, OUC called first. Albert applied and took the job and started out as a meter technician in 1996 and really enjoyed the work. He enjoyed the work so much that when OPD called about the community service job, he declined it. Again, thankfully for us. Albert was promoted to Meter Reader 2 in 96 and Meter Reader 1 in 1997, and then in 1999 promoted to his current position as Service Order Technician. As a Service Order Tech, Albert is responsible for performing field visits, for meter cut-on and cut-offs, for non-paid disconnects, reconnects, as well as move-in, move-outs for both electric and water services. He also performs meter-based unlocks primarily for electricians who are working in the service in the service for upgrades or relocations. Albert is also part of the transportation team during extreme weather events like hurricanes. He is our go-to person for working the overnight shift as it relates to making material deliveries out of the Pershing warehouse to crews in the field. Albert is a great worker and goes above and beyond to get the work done. He is very reliable and detailed in his everyday work assignments. Albert also does a great job mentoring and teaching his fellow coworkers. Albert's ability to manage his time efficiently and deliver high quality work has made him a highly productive employee. He is very dedicated to his job and is a great asset to the team. And he is always joyful and full of energy. to share his experiences in the field. One of his best qualities is that he loves OUC and his fellow employees. Outside of OUC, Albert loves bicycling with his daughter, right? Especially in Wedgefield and the Christmas areas. He says it's just out there on the open road and really enjoys the trails and cycling on those trails. He enjoys bowling and badminton, and also likes to get in his car and simply drive on the open road, soaking in the scenery. So Albert, thank you so much for your 30 years of dedicated service to OUC. Next, I'd like to call Alex Roman to the front. Alex has 20 years of service here at OUC. I think he's accompanied by his wife, Angela, and son, Alexander. If you guys want to come up front as well. Oh, no, whoever's here is welcome. Who's that? Oh, and his mother. Alex moved here from Puerto Rico and came here because he wanted a change of environment. He initially found a job at Cracker Barrel, and his second job was working in a warehouse, but he didn't like that environment too much. What he was really looking for was a career and not a job. So he was almost ready to move back to Puerto Rico when his father told him that he had a relative that worked here at OUC, and the relative really recommended OUC as a great place to work. So based off of that recommendation, he applied and got the job as a meter reader in 2006. In 2013, he was promoted to Meter Tech 3. In 2015, Water Meter Tech 2. And then in 2019, his current job as Water Meter Technician 1. In his role as a Water Meter Tech 1, he is responsible for managing the installation of all new residential and commercial water meters and large commercial water meters, including the water modules, meter boxes, and backflow devices. He is also responsible for the installation and maintenance of reclaimed water services for 2-inch and smaller reclaimed services for the City of Orlando. In addition to installing new meters, he is also responsible for maintaining and servicing water and reclaimed meter services to include troubleshooting, meter function and communications, as well as replacing defective meters, modules, boxes, and backflow devices. Alex has proven to be an exceptional team member whose dedication, integrity, and work ethic consistently elevates those around him. He is incredibly self-motivated and genuinely invested in seeing others succeed. Alex is often the first to arrive and the last to leave. He takes initiative without being asked, seeks continuous improvement, and motivates the team through his example. He shows pride in his responsibilities and approaches every task with accountability, professionalism, and a strong desire to deliver high-quality results. Alex is also a key contributor to training new employees. His patient, thorough, and effective teaching style ensures new team members feel supported, confident, and well prepared. Alex is a great example of how to be an exceptional employee, team player, and contributor to success of the department and the organization. Outside of work, Alex loves running and working out in the gym, loves spending time with his family. He also is heavily involved in his son playing baseball. His son here is in the 11th grade, and my understanding is a very, very good baseball pitcher with a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, which those of you who don't know baseball, that's really, really good. So good luck and continued success in that endeavor, and thank you for your 20 years of service. Yep. Yeah.
Gracias.
He's tall. Come over here to meet the commissioners.
Take your time.
Nice and easy.
Nice and easy. That's right. Nice.
Gracias, señora. Gracias. Gracias, usted también. Thank you. Ms. Ferroni, would you like to present the employee community recognition, please?
Good afternoon, President Lamon Gonzalez, Commissioners, and Clint. I am delighted to celebrate with you today OUC's recognition as a 2025 Residential Customer Champion. This prestigious title recognizes our commitment to meaningful customer engagement. Since 2016, OUC has been recognized as a customer champion among U.S. electric-only providers by Escalent, who are a leading AI-enabled market research and advisory firm. The residential study on utility trust and customer engagement surveyed nearly 61,000 residential customers of electric, gas, and combination utilities nationwide on a 1,000-point scale. I'm proud to announce that among electric utilities, OUC ranked #1 in Florida, #1 in the South, and #2 nationwide. So close. This is the 9th consecutive year that OUC has earned this distinction and demonstrates our sustained excellence in customer engagement. Our score reached 778, representing a 16-point increase from last year and a 29-point improvement from 2023. It's important to note that nationally, only 36 of the 149 electric, gas, and combination utilities were named as customer champions. OUC finished 8 points behind the top-ranked utility, Omaha Public Power District. We have a lot of good friends there. So we're happy for them, kind of. Now I'd like to turn our attention specifically to the southern region. Of the 31 electric customer champions nationwide, only 5 electric utilities were from the South. You can see them here. OUC outperformed all peer utilities in Florida, reinforcing our strong position in the state and the region. I want to highlight that this award looks closely at something called engaged customer relationship, which is a big part of how customers connect with your utility. This index includes 3 elements. It's service satisfaction, brand trust and product experience, and brand trust and product experience. OUC improved in all 3 compared to our 2024 results. In service satisfaction, OUC scored highest in safety and reliability, with customers seeing how committed we are to keeping services reliable and ensuring the safety of our employees in the community. In brand trust, OUC leads the nation for reliability and quality. Our customers recognize the work we put into maintaining strong reliability and resolving service issues quickly. In product experience, OUC led the nation in customer awareness of the benefits of our solutions, especially how they help to lower utility costs, support the environment, and encourage more mindful energy use. OUC remains a top performer amongst electric utilities in the nation. Our continued focus on valuing our customers and delivering customer-centric practices is reflected in this recognition. And finally, I do want to thank every member of the OUC team. This is a team sport here, and your dedication, professionalism, and customer focus are what makes this achievement possible. While we're proud of the progress, we recognize that sustained excellence requires continued innovation. That's why Strategy 2035 includes the Customer Interaction Reinvention Initiative, reinforcing our commitment to growth and transformation. By valuing the customer, we ensure our decisions today position us to continue to lead tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move to the affirmative items portion of the agenda. Mr. Bullock, before we consider the affirmative items, do we have any requests from the public to speak on any of these items?
None. None on the affirmative items.
Thank you. Mr. Bullock, do you have comments or presentation regarding the affirmative items?
Yes, I do, President Lamon Gonzalez. I would like Orlando Allen Castro to come up to the podium. I would like to highlight agenda item A8. I'm very excited about this project, and it's a project that has been discussed well over a decade. Where's Mr. Mutters? I must admit I have a little bit of my fingerprints on this in my previous operations position. And in 2016, we finally got to the point where we came to the board and we were ready to start formally planning and preparing for this project. Orlando's going to give a little bit of a historical overview of this project, give you an overview of why this project is so important, talked about how we started, perhaps why we took a pause at a moment in time. Again, it's just a really important project as we think about electric reliability in our system. And we are here today seeking your approval for what ideally is the total capital expenditure amount that we need to complete this project. We will certainly have to come back to the board at later dates for purchase orders for other suppliers as the team has put together what we view as the final plan related to the substation, as well as the final plan related to the transmission corridor. So again, very important project for OUC. I'm glad that we are here. It is a bit of a historic moment. And I know the team is ready to continue to get underway and get this work completed for the community and for OUC. So with that, I'll turn it over to Orlando. He's going to give us a bit of an in-depth overview, a little bit of history, and bring you up current time of what this project and where it's headed. So Orlando?
Yeah. Good afternoon. Thank you, Clint. Good afternoon, President Lamon Gonzalez, commissioners, and Clint. As Clint mentioned, I'll be covering item A8, and this is a very much anticipated critical project for the transmission group, so I appreciate Clint teeing that up. It is again, a much anticipated project. So just before we get started, I'd like to share that, in the transmission world, when we talk about long-term planning, long-term planning means we're looking out 5 to 10 years out into the horizon and identifying project needs well in advance. And so it takes time to see some of these projects come to fruition. And in the meantime, a lot can change, a lot can happen during that time in terms of costs, access, and other factors. So just wanted to share that. So there's going to be a lot that I'm going to cover today. Forgive me, there's going to be a lot of numbers in my mind. But as Clint mentioned, we're going for the full ask here. Okay, so today I'm going to give you an overview of the project background, and then I'm going to do a little bit of a show and tell of the project location and show some design renderings of the project. I will do a recap of the past project approvals. We'll review the transmission route study and cost savings. I'll do a quick summary of the progress to date. And then I'll wrap it up with the estimated project cost, the cost breakdown, and the recommended actions. Okay, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this slide. This effort, as Clint mentioned, has begun well over 10 years. And it started where long-term planning studies identified the need for a additional or new 230 kV source into the downtown corridor and extending that 230 kV line over to the west side of our system, really to improve reliability, improve resiliency, and increase transfer capabilities across the territory between OUC and Duke. So some of the key drivers are the growth in downtown, which has led to an increase in loading on the the existing 115 kV system. So the 115 kV system, I like to describe it as it's the predominant voltage class within our service territory in the core and central of our service territory. Over the last 25 years, we've made significant progress to upgrade all of the 115 kV lines to the extent that we could. With those upgrades and with summer peak loads and under certain contingency scenarios, we continue to see constraints on the 115 kV system. In fact, here recently, we experienced some of those constraints and the elevated risks when we lost the Weber to Country Club line for an extended period of time. So these contingency scenarios take into account the long lead times that it takes to procure equipment and material, and the risk, the increase in the risk exposure over an extended period of time. We designed the system to meet NERC reliability standards, and we designed the system to be operated so that it can handle the loss of a single segment. So when that happens, we then need to be prepared for the loss of the next segment. I do want to give a little bit of a quick overview. We operate three different voltage classes when it comes to the transmission network. We have 69 kV, 115 kV, and 230 kV. So 69 is the voltage that services the St. Cloud area. 115 and 230 kV is pretty much the voltage class that services the Orlando service territory. I like to describe the 230 kV line or the 230 kV system as the workhorse, really the Clydesdale of OUC's transmission network. So this new 230 kV line will essentially alleviate some of those transmission constraints and will increase the power flows, the east to west flows between OUC and Duke. All right, so that was a lot. This project it consists of three phases. And so the first phase is what you have before the board today for approval. It includes the new 230 kV line from the Pershing substation to a new 230 kV Lake Highland substation. So that is phase one. Phase two has already been completed. We did that somewhat out of sequence, but phase two, we upgraded the existing 230 kV line from the Stanton substation over to the Pershing substation. And then there's a future phase three that will come to the board later, but a future phase three that consists of carrying or continuing that new 230 kV source from the new Lake Highland substation over to an existing Pine Hills substation, basically extending that 230 kV source to the west side of our territory. Okay, so now I'm going to give you just kind of a reference, somewhat of a reference, and give you the 40,000 foot view of where this project sits in relation to other landmarks and projects. So to your bottom right, you see the existing OUC Pershing substation. That's also the location of OUC's engineering and operations building. Really, that'll be the starting point of the new 230 kV source. And we will then, see if this works actually. So then this is where the location is of the new Lake Highland substation. It'll be co-located, if you will, or across the street from the existing Weber 115 kV line. I'm sorry, 115 kV substation. And so just to kind of give you some additional reference points, north of that, off of the map, is the existing Advent Health campus. And then south of that is the Orlando Health Campus just as a reference point. And we wanted to call out just two projects that we wanted to call out. And this might be a good opportunity to take a sip of water. Excuse me. So we wanted to call out two projects that you may have heard of. The Orlando Sentinel redevelopment site and the Camping World Stadium renovations. As we drill down and zoom in a little closer into the site, you can see here, this is in green is the existing Weber 115 kV substation. It sits just between Weber Street to the north and Pasadena Place to the south. And right across the street is the home of the new Lake Highland 230 kV substation that you see there in blue. I want to mention that it borders, or the roads that border it is the Magnolia Avenue to the east, or sorry, to the west, the urban trail that runs along the north end of the property, Highland Avenue to the east, and then of course Weber Street to the south. I'll point out that just east of the new substation is an existing OUC water plant. And there's a bit of history here because, you know, you could perhaps call this OUC's first campus, where we have the Lake Highland water plant, and the Weber Street substation is actually OUC's first substation. We call that substation number 1. Okay. The next two slides correspond to these viewpoints 1 and 2. I do want to point out that as a condition to building a substation, we are building a concrete decorative wall around the substation to, you know, provide somewhat of a way to conceal or block the view of the substation from outside. Not 100%, but you know, it does a pretty good job, and I'll show you some slides here shortly so you can see some examples of what that looks like. Okay, so this is a rendering of that wall. This is a little bit hard to see because there's not as much contrast on this slide. It'll look better on the next slide. But this is standing from the northwest corner of the property looking east, and you're standing at the urban trail, and you can see the existing conditions on the top, and then over here on the bottom where this arrow is, it's pointing to the new wall. And again, this is a draft rendering. What it doesn't show is that there will be along this path here, parallel to where this wrought iron fence is at, there will be a new entrance, a driveway with a gate into the substation for access for vehicles and equipment. Okay, so this is viewpoint number 2. This is looking from the northeast corner of the site, and this is actually provides a better contrast of what the wall would look like for the proposed conditions and the existing conditions. You can see up on top, you can see a clear view of the existing Lake Highland water plant, and then you can see how that's concealing the view there. Behind that wall will be the new 230 kV substation. Okay, so this will give you a bit of a better view of what the actual wall would look like. This is a wall at the existing Weber substation on the Weber Street side looking south. That's the north end wall of the Weber substation. And that actually used to be, I believe it was a wrought iron fence or a chain link fence, but we replaced that with the wall, again, to provide a decorative, aesthetically pleasing wall. This is looking at it from the Pasadena Place road, and this is the south wall. So really the future new Lake Highland substation will look very much like this. However, I will mention that the final details, we're still working that out with the City of Orlando Architectural Review Board, but you can expect to see something similar to this in terms of the brick finish and the smooth finish up on top. Okay, so this is perhaps one of my favorite slides. This is the rendering of the substation and what it would look like once it's completed. And so you can see here again, the Weber Street to the right, right over here. And then off of the map is the existing Weber substation that we were just talking about. And then surrounding the substation is the new concrete wall. You can see the urban trail up on the top, and then off of Magnolia Avenue, that's the new driveway that I was referencing in the previous slides with the gate access there on the west. There will be another gate access over to the east. Okay, so what have we been doing for the last 10 years? So as you can imagine, there's the proverbial pre-COVID and post-COVID. So pre-COVID, right, from 2016 to 2020, there were several items before the board, which consisted of approval for the original route study, detailed engineering and property acquisition associated with the original route, as well as environmental remediation and demolition services for the Lake Highland property. So then 2020 came and we put the project on pause, on hold, due to the uncertainties of COVID. In July of 2023, we had an opportunity. We had learned of the DOT Robinson Street Improvement Project. So we had an opportunity to get in there and install our conduit along Robinson in order to take advantage of that before FDOT completed their work. Otherwise, we would have been subject to a somewhat of a moratorium once FDOT completes that work. It's anywhere from 5 to 7 years before anybody can go back in and do any kind of construction on that road. In August of 2024, we had another opportunity to place advance orders on some auto transformers and on an auto transformer and some high voltage circuit breakers. And that was primarily because by 2024, the lead times remained elevated. They were still above normal. We were seeing lead times still running at 3 to 4 years. And as a reference, prior to COVID, lead times were about 1.5 to 2 years. We never saw that come back down, so we placed those orders in advance. And then in January of 2025, we were before the board again for approval to enter into a joint participation agreement with the City of Orlando for the Lift Station 2 project. We were also asking for funding for engineering of the Fern Creek underground portion for a conduit system. And we asked for a change order so that we can do an additional routing study in an effort to reduce the construction costs of the new 230 kV transmission line. So the next few slides I'm going to cover really just the difference between the original route and what the new route yielded as far as distance and costs. Okay, so our consultants completed the preliminary assessments and the alternative route study. And so before I go into the new route, I just want to highlight quickly what the original route entailed. The original route, starting or initiating from the Pershing substation or the Pershing Stanton High Line and going north up to Lake Underhill for about 2.8 miles for overhead. And then it converts to underground and goes underground along the Lake Underhill Road and making its way over to the downtown new Lake Highland substation. So 6.7 miles of underground and 2.8 miles of overhead was the original route. So this is a little bit, I recognize this is a little bit of a busier slide than the first one with all the call outs. But the real key takeaway with the new route here is that the new route reduces the underground length by about 2 miles and increases the overhead by 1.2 miles. And this is important because the underground costs are roughly about 2.5 to 3 times the cost of overhead. So, and I will also, one of a key benefit of this route is that it utilizes an existing transmission corridor. So you can see here up on the top right, there's a picture of the existing 115 kV structure on Curry Ford with a distribution circuit underbuilt. And so what we would do in this case is we're going to replace those structures with taller structures to accommodate the 230 kV circuit over the 115 and then over the distribution circuit. You can see here right along the where it says existing line, that is really phase 2. That is the upgrade of the line from Stanton to Pershing. And where the dark blue meets the light blue is where really the scope starts for the new 230 kV line going up to Curry Ford, running west on Curry Ford just before Crystal Lake. And that's where it will convert to underground and then underground the rest of the way over to the new Lake Highland substation. Okay, so the new route is by far more cost effective than the original route. If we take today's estimated dollars for the new route and convert that to a cost per mile, we can see that the original route, this is excluding, by the way, excluding the substation cost. The original route would have cost us 251 million, or roughly 252 million. And the new route is estimated at 204 million. Again, this doesn't include the substation costs. I'll show that in the cost breakdown here shortly. But overall, yielding a cost reduction of about 48 million by just doing that route reassessment. So, just a quick summary of the progress to date. We've completed the 1 mile underground conduit system on Robinson Street. We ordered the auto transformers and high voltage circuit breakers, and those are expected to arrive in October 2027. We've entered into the joint participation agreement with the City of Orlando, and the work for LS2 is underway. And we are in the process of going through the engineering design review for the Fern Creek underground conduit system, and that work will be underway as well. And then finally, we completed the additional route study, of which I've shared those results here today. Okay, as I mentioned, we put the project on hold, due to COVID. In 2019, just before that, the preliminary estimate for this project was at 126 million. A big difference from what we're presenting today. Since then, we have received capital funding approval of up to 77 million to date. So as you can imagine, from 2019 to now, right, there's been significant cost increases, and those are associated with the cost escalation with with the civil work that impacts the manholes, the duct bank system, and the road restoration. The underground cable and installation costs are up 80% due to copper and labor. And then substation construction costs are up 45% due to steel, copper, and labor. So today's current estimate is at 274 million. And I will share what the cost breakdown is here. And I only have one more slide after this. So this is a breakdown. We show the substation costs coming in at 70 million or 71 million. This does include some work that involves tying the new Lake Highland substation with the existing Weber substation. You can see the underground costs representing 55% of the total project costs, and then overhead at 43 million. And in order to build the overhead, we need to procure easements, as mentioned in the agenda item. So we're estimating at just under 10 million for easements. The recommended action is commission authorization for the general manager and CEO to execute the real estate purchase agreements and associated closing documents for the purchase of easements in the aggregate amount not to exceed 10 million. And then commission approval of change request number 7 to the capital expenditure estimate in the amount of $197,581,695 for the downtown 230 kV transmission line project. Again, I want to emphasize that this does also include the new substation. We're calling this phase 1 of 3, increasing the total project cost to $274,393,462. Thank you, and I'll take any questions.
All right. Before we vote on the affirmative items, are there any comments or questions from the commissioners?
Would you mind if I just, a couple?
Sure.
Orlando, just, would you mind going back to the new route diagram slide real
Yes.
quick? I just have a couple of things that I want you to clarify for the commissioners. So we have that roughly 4-mile route of overhead. You talk about leveraging an existing transmission corridor, yet we're asking the board for a not to exceed of 10 million on easements. Can you just expand a little bit on why we need easements if we're in an existing corridor?
Yes, so we need easements. One, the poles in most cases, it really will not be going exactly in the same spot where the existing poles are. So depending on exactly where the placement of the new poles are, we may need the easement because it may fall outside of the current easement. I believe some of these poles are in right of way. So I'm getting heading on over there. Yes. So some of these poles are on the existing right of way. So there may be scenarios where through the preliminary design, there are some scenarios where the new pole is going to require easement where it's in right of way. And then the last thing is, since we are going to 230 kV, there are different standards than they are for the 115, and so there's going to be perhaps some additional easements needed for what we call the blowout, basically the spans in between each poles. We need to make sure that whenever there's whenever there's wind or et cetera, that it's not encroaching private property without an easement.
And then on the underground, the Crystal Lake, there's been no work done on that at all.
Correct.
On Robinson, the conduit work is already completed
That is correct.
as a part of that project. Fern Creek, it's in progress.
In progress.
And then explain the LS2 parts that we're working with the city of Orlando on.
So LS2 is a city force main project, and excuse me. So the city is, when we do a joint participation agreement with the city will act as the lead coordinator for the construction activities. So there's an opportunity to then provide our design and our specifications to the city's contractors, and they will install our infrastructure, and we will reimburse the city through this joint participation agreement. So the city has LS2 Part A and Part B. As I mentioned, they're doing a forced water main upgrade. And so we have this opportunity to get in there while they're going to open up the road and put our conduit system and infrastructure there. So that is, and that again, that is a work that's undergoing right now.
And then as part of the underground work, we'll be working in partnership with OUC's communication team, as well as in coordination with the city of Orlando's communication team, as we work to inform customers, I would say specifically on the Crystal Lake area, because we haven't started
Yes.
doing any work. There is a plan and a coordinated effort to work to inform the impacted customers. These are not easy projects to do. We understand they have impacts on people's daily commutes. But rest assured, we're doing it in coordination with the city, and we do it in an effort to try to get out there and inform customers early on so people can plan accordingly. But we do understand infrastructure projects are an inconvenient for our community, but they also are very important for the reliability and sustainability of the community. So, okay, great. I just wanted to add a couple of things. Thank you, Orlando.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you.
No questions or comments?
Just the blue dotted line and the red one after you get up to Fern Creek, what roads are those?
It was the one call out we didn't have.
Yes, roughly Canton, and Highland
What was the second one? I'm sorry.
Highland Avenue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no work that's been done on there. Will be done on there jointly. So those are going to have to be opened up.
The LS 2A and B, that's the work again that the city is leading, but don't believe that we have actually opened up the road yet for that work.
That will be done in
We're
coordination
still
with the
working
city.
through those
Okay, so
final
those will be
design
jointly with The
details.
city and Fern
Correct.
Creek will be joint.
Correct. And Robinson's already done, which
Yeah.
was also jointly with the city.
Right.
Chris, just I guess continue the theme. The Crystal Lake is not a jointly with the city. There's no
No,
initial.
that's gonna be all
project,
OUC.
All
Right.
OUC.
Right. And we, we're in the early stages of those discussions with the city, with Fern Creek, and then we'll be discussing Crystal Lake. So yeah, there's still more work to be done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Again, before we vote, I want to ask if there are any members of the public who would like to address the commission on affirmative.
No one on
items?
affirmative items, President.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve affirmative items A1 through A20?
Move approval, Madam President.
With a motion from Commissioner Brown, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Commissioner Williams. Is there any discussion? If there is no further discussion, we will take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none? Motion passes. Thank you. Since there is no new business, we will move on to the presentation part of our agenda, and I will provide the Audit Finance Committee report. The Audit Finance Committee meeting was held on January 22nd, 2026. The committee received a summary of the fiscal year 2025 financial results and the operating statistics. The committee received a summary of the fiscal year 2025 financial audit by OUC's external auditor, Ernst & Young. Ernst & Young provided a clean audit opinion and noted that OUC's internal controls are operating effectively and that Ernst & Young receives outstanding cooperation from OUC management and internal audit staff. The committee received a presentation on recent internal audit activities, including a review of recently completed internal audit projects and the status of open audit items. The committee also received an update on the contract extension with OUC's financial advisor and was informed that OUC will be updating its bond underwriter pool in the coming months. The committee received a summary of the fiscal year 2026 financing plan, including the refunding of existing debt for debt service savings and a new money bond insurance to fund a portion of the fiscal year 2026 and fiscal year 2027 capital plans. The committee received quarterly updates for the Energy Risk Management Oversight Committee, Treasury, Accounting, Fuel Stabilization Fund, and grants administration activities. Mr. McCullen, will you please present the financial report?
Yes, thank you, President Lyman-Gonzalez. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good afternoon, Clint. In your board packet, you have the interim financial statements for the fiscal year to date through January. So this is the first 4 months of our fiscal year. Fiscal year begins in October. Through the end of January, most of the cold weather impact happened in the early days of February. So through January, the weather was actually pretty mild compared to historic averages between October and January. So retail revenues are a little bit soft at 2.3% under budget. Good news though, wholesale electric revenues are almost 200% of the budget already in the first 4 months of the year. So there have been really strong opportunities to sell into the wholesale market. And that's great because we use those wholesale revenues to help keep rates down, prices down for our retail customers. Water revenues are on budget. Chilled water and other revenues are also on budget. You'll notice that fuel revenues are significantly under budget, and that's largely because of lower than anticipated commodity prices for fuel. On the expense side, OUC's departments are doing a great job at controlling the budget. We're $1.2 million under budget. Depreciation and amortization, $3 million under budget. Other operating expenses pretty much right on budget. So net income before contributions for the 4 months ending January 31st are $50.2 million versus a budget of $36.9, which is $13.3 million over the approved budget. February so far, I have preliminary numbers on February retail revenues. They came in pretty strong, as you would imagine, with the cold weather snap that we had. We don't yet know the wholesale revenues for February, but retail revenues have closed this gap. This $4.2 million gap is down to about $1 million and a half versus budget through February. So next month's board meeting, I'll come back to you. I'll show you the February numbers, which will include the cold weather event, both on retail and wholesale, and we'll see what it's also done to the fuel stabilization fund and operating expenses. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Madam President, I have one question.
Yes, you do?
What do you anticipate with fuel prices, pass-through fuel prices coming? Looks like everything's going up.
Yeah, so I'll start by saying we have a fuel stabilization fund, which we fund with, we have at this point about $100 million, over $100 million in fuel stabilization fund. And so we have the ability to absorb short-term impacts on fuel prices. When I say short-term impacts, it depends on the magnitude of the movement. Just a few years ago, there was extreme swings in the cost of natural gas, and we used up most of the fuel stabilization fund very quickly, and then we went actually negative, and so that required fuel rate increases. But for now, this disruption that we're seeing with global events over the last several days is putting upward pressure on some commodity prices. The question is, how long will it stay elevated? We do have, as I said, the fuel stabilization fund that will help us insulate our customers from having to do a fuel rate increase for the near-term future. But we watch this every month, and we'll come back to you at the earliest opportunity if we feel like a change in fuel rates are needed. We can also talk about this at the April Audit Finance Committee for the commissioners that are able to attend.
Certainly some of the fund, the fuels are hedged already. So we already have some hedging in place, which is helpful. And at the moment, we're still operating, the natural gas units as well as the coal units. And so the teams will work to kind of optimize from a fuel pricing standpoint, at the moment.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. McCollum. Mr. Woody, do you have any legal issues to report? Thank you. Mr. Bullock, do we have any members of the public that have requested to address the board?
Yes, ma'am. I believe we have one.
Okay. I believe that is Mr. Michael Cohen. Mr. Cohen, will you please come to the podium? Before we start, I'd like to remind you that you must state your name, address, and whether you are an OUC customer. You should limit your comments, please, to 3 minutes or less. And the commissioners may direct questions to our office or staff to address now, if appropriate, by contacting you with a response to your question once we have verified the facts. Mr.
Good
Cohen.
afternoon, Commissioners. Mayor's not here. Mr. Bullock, I am Michael Cohen. I live at 2505 Donaldson Drive, Orlando 32812, and I am an OUC customer. A special welcome to the 2 new commissioners. During the Groundhog Day freeze, OUC was barely reliable. I got multiple calls and emails to limit my electric use. I imagine you used inefficient peaker plants running and purchased expensive gas on the spot market. We all know that these costs eventually are passed on to OUC's customers. Many will have problems paying their bills. This is so 20th century. A virtual power plant, also called a distributed power plant, could have solved some of the demand surge caused by the temperatures and the heating demand of your customers. VPPs access power stored in distributed batteries in homes, businesses, and EVs. The owners of the stored power are paid less than the cost of your current peak supply costs. These VPPs can not only help with cold mornings, they can also shave the peak in hot summer afternoons and evenings. Commissioners, you need to request a workshop on this topic. Not so much for the feasibility, but for the implementation. Already many states have VPPs, including red state Texas and several blue states in New England. Puerto Rico, with probably the most dysfunctional grid, has VPPs. And Germany, with some of the most conservative engineers in the world, also has VPPs. VPPs will save your customers money, and your staff will have less stress during demand surges. By the way, Chris Castro helped write the federal white paper on virtual power plants. Don't tell your residents and businesses that there's nothing you can do about their bills, that OUC is only passing on the cost to produce the electricity, because there is cost savings vehicle with VPPs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. We will move forward now with the general manager's comments.
Thank you, President Lamon Gonzalez. I do have a couple items would like to share with the board, perhaps a fitting transition here to talk about the cold weather event. to really brief the board on not only the 2 days, if you will, that we went through, but talk about leading up to the event, how we prepared, talk a bit about how we performed during that period, as well as give a brief update about how the state performed, for our customers. Talk about some of the communication and education that was mentioned. Certainly, it's important that we want to inform our customers to be mindful of their usage, because at the end of the day, a lot of electric usage results in perhaps a higher bill for our customers. We want to make sure they're very aware. So we'll talk about some of the education. I think the most important element is to also share with the board, again, not only the event, but really understanding the lessons learned. It was at moments tight. We were facing, some relatively new scenarios. It's been quite a while that we've had perhaps the combination of the low temperature and the wind chill factor since we've seen these types of conditions. So it is important that we're learning from these, and we want to not only talk about the event, but share with the board some of the learnings. And perhaps even to Michael Cohen's point, as we are actively in the middle of the electric integrated resource planning as we speak, Attila is going to highlight some of the elements that we will learn and use from this event to tie into the electric integrated resource plan as we think about our entire fleet and as we continue to think about solar and energy storage and the combination of those elements. So I've really asked Linda and Attila to give an overview of this presentation. I would ask commissioners to please ask any questions throughout. This is good education. This is good informative information for our community, and it's good information for us to take into, again, our electric integrated resource plan and to identify some of the things that we have learned, and also identify some of the investments that the board has supported us and made, and we want to highlight how they were also helpful, during this event. So with that, I'll turn it over to Linda and Attila to give us an overview of the cold weather event, Fern.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon again, President, Commissioners, and Clint. Yes, so today I am going to begin with a brief overview of this historic weather event, including how OUC activated our emergency response protocols, the organizational structure that we use for that. Attila is going to provide an overview of the electric and water system preparation and impacts, including coordination statewide with our other reliability partners, our load forecast performance. You can see a variety of milestones, some of the volatility that we experienced. And then I'm going to come back up and conclude the presentation with some of our outreach efforts to our customers, our communications, and the implementation all the way through that response. So let's start by taking a moment to set the stage on the impacts of this unique event. It certainly was an unusual winter storm event that has been dubbed Winter Storm Fern. I think the Weather Channel gave it that name. The storm stretched roughly across 2,000 miles, impacting the Midwest, the Southeast, and the Northeast United States with record-breaking cold and snowfall in over a century. Due to the magnitude and the impact of the storm, 20 states declared a state of emergency. Fern was truly a multi-regional event. It strained infrastructure before we even felt the impacts here in Central Florida. Across the country, power outages climbed past 1 million. Southern states were hit particularly hard because our infrastructure is typically not designed for this type of event. So heavy ice accumulation, falling trees, all caused extensive damage to electric distribution systems. So in response, OUC deployed a 17-member mutual aid crew consisting of 16 line techs and 1 mechanic to South Carolina. Let me explain what that means. Mutual aid is a long-standing nationwide framework that we use as utilities, so it allows utility members to support one another during major restoration efforts. Normally we think of this around hurricanes, but this is another example of it. So we help communities recover more quickly after any kind of severe weather. So our team, again, a 17-member team, we were called upon to support restoration efforts in two fellow public power utilities, Seneca, Light and Water, and Santee Cooper. Just so happens Santee Cooper actually didn't need our assistance by the time we got there, but we're here and prepared to respond either way. So OUC, I'll just mention, also benefits from this mutual aid network. Following hurricanes, we consistently bring in mutual aid prior to a hurricane and use them in the immediate aftermath. So we reciprocate whenever we can because we appreciate that ability. So Fern eventually intensified into a strong nor'easter off the East Coast, bringing an extended period of cold weather to Central Florida from January 31st to February 2nd. So ahead of that cold temperature drop, the Arctic mass delivered wind gusts reaching up to 45 miles an hour across Central Florida. It wasn't limited to Central Florida, of course. This rare long-duration hard freeze impacted our entire state, as you can see here in purple. With record-breaking low temperatures, dangerous wind chills between 9 and 15 degrees, and daytime highs that really didn't go much higher, this event really stands out as one of the most significant in Florida's recent history. So to provide some background on how OUC prepares for and responds to severe weather, we follow FEMA's National Incident Management System. We refer to that as NIMS. The standardized approach to incident management is used nationwide, and it really provides the standardized approach, standardized language, standardized organization structure, and allows agencies to work very efficiently together and communicate amongst one another. So the NIMS outlines a specific operational structure, which you can see here. It's called the Incident Command System, or ICS. And under this model, employees are assigned clearly defined roles to support preparation for and response during all kinds of incidents. Normally we think of it as natural disasters like a hurricane, but we also use this for cyber incidents or something like COVID-19. This slide outlines the various Incident Command System roles and sections that OUC employees are assigned to during activation. For this cold weather event, you can see here in blue that some of the sections were required to fully activate while others were not. Those that fully activated included the incident commander, along with members of operations, planning, and public information, who coordinated preparation and response efforts. The sections here shown in gray were not sitting idly by any means, but they maintained a monitoring level of support. While these teams certainly spent the week ahead preparing for this event, it also required them to be in our Incident Command Center, which is at Pershing, at 4:30 a.m. on Sunday and Monday morning, ready to respond no matter what happened. Now I'm going to invite Attila to come on up and share with you about our operational preparations and impacts. Oh, well, actually, before I do that, let me check and make sure. It's a lot of information. Any questions before we move to the next section?
Any questions, commissioners? No, thank you.
Okay, Attila.
Thank you, Linda. President Landman Gonzalez, commissioners, welcome. Thank you for being here. We're excited to get to know you, and hopefully you find this content helpful today.
Yes.
I think we had a number of both challenges and triumphs during this winter event, and I think as new leaders emerge in the organization, as we rotate staff, some of the lessons learned from the last winter event, which was in 2010, were not experienced by a significant portion of the staff. So it was great to prepare for this incident and execute in the incident, take away lessons learned, test our current planning criteria, test our current planning systems, and adapt from the lessons learned. So I'd love to share some of those details with you. First, I'd like to start with how the winter storms impacted some of our distribution systems, starting with the electric system. On the electric distribution side, we are staffed normally in a 24/7 fashion in our distribution control center and also with our troubleshooters. But for this event, anticipating additional outages, we did bring in 24/7 coverage through multiple line crews. And that investment proved to be prudent in aggregate. We had 25 outages impacting over 7,600 customers. We had about 6 circuit lockouts, and these additional resources enabled us to respond to most of the outages within a 90-minute targeted time frame. So we were able to restore those outages, shorten the length, and get people's lights and heaters back on working during this event. The distribution system performed very well in this event. A majority of our outages resulted from broken insulators. You'll see a picture of a 12 kV broken insulator at the bottom right and a 12 kV insulator attached to a line at the top of the photo. In order to build our system and harden it for hurricanes, we don't have a lot of slack in our spans. We want those lights tight. That way they don't swing around in winter events, or we want to prevent line slap. In other words, conductor getting into each other. As the extreme cold came upon us, some of those conductors shrank and there was not enough give in some of those insulators. That's what's caused a majority of the outages. But that's a trade-off that we will have given the number of high wind events versus cold events. The total duration, the average customer duration for this event resulted in 2 minutes of SAIDI. Now, SAIDI metric is basically the targeted annual amount of minutes per year that the average customer would experience. Our internal target is 40 minutes per year per customer, and this winter event accounted for about 5% of that allotment, so about 2 minutes of the 40 minutes. In the last 2 years, OUC meet and beat its reliability targets, and we're on pace to do so again this year, even with the January event, or excuse me, the February 1, February 2 event. On the water system, we also proactively staged trouble technicians on the system. We had a unusually high number of calls, about 398 water trouble related calls, mostly beginning on Sunday morning through Monday. A lot of these were low pressure calls resulting from broken pipes at the home or irrigation system. So our teams worked with the customers. The customers were appreciative of either us repairing the outage or providing guidance on how to best go about mitigating the situation as quickly as we can. Switching gears, before I get into the power generation and load balancing aspect of the operation, which I think was the most interesting portion of the storm, a little bit about our Florida reliability structure, OUC's role within the power pool, and the greater Florida landscape. So Florida is part of a balancing authority. We are the agent of the balancing authority. The entity is called Florida Municipal Power Pool, and it is comprised of OUC, Lakeland, and the Florida Municipal Power Agency, which serves multiple member cities. Our role is to coordinate generation and load across member cities, utilities, and operate as a single integrated system. Again, OUC is the agent and bears a majority of the operational and compliance responsibilities within this role. Florida Reliability Coordination Council, or FRCC, oversees reliability for the entire Florida region. They're responsible for planning, operations, oversight, and compliance monitoring within Florida. They're also a great venue for communication across member utilities and balancing authorities in emergency situations or grid events such as this winter event. A little bit more perspective. In the two graphs here, I have the loads for February 1st Sunday and February 2nd Monday. The FRCC or the Florida aggregated load was about 51 gigs on Monday, which was the higher load of the 2 days. And to put things into perspective, the FMPP, or our power pool, is about 77.5% of the Florida native load. OUC is about 39 or 40% of the power pool, and therefore we make up about 3% of the Florida native load. Now, in these two graphs, the team used aggregate data going back to the early 2000s. This takes into account customer growth, takes into account energy efficiency investments that the customers have made, that some of which we have subsidized, and it takes into account wind chill, weather, and the number of hours specifically below the 32-degree threshold that requires strip heating to be activated in the homes in addition to the heat pumps. As you can see, we had a relatively high load predicted for, on the left, Sunday, around 3,700 megawatts. And the assumption for Monday was significantly higher, around 4,200 megawatts, which would have been an all-time pool record. The assumption there was a second day or second night of 12 plus hours below the freezing temperature, combined with the fact that many commercial buildings that had been relatively inactive on Sunday would come online, and heating would drive significant demand. You can see that we hit our load forecast, or we're very close to it on Sunday, and Monday came in below that. There were calls for conservation, which we think was a partial relief on the system. It also brings into question the forecasting methodology and what updates we need to make in order to tighten that gap. I will say that on Monday, the forecasted reserve margin for the power pool was about 3%, which is which is a concerning number as a whole. OUC's reserve margin was significantly better than that, so that was reflective of all the entities. Most of the state entities were also very tight in the Monday forecast, and the calls on the days leading up to that had a lot of discussion about what additional units can be brought online, what additional power can be imported in the state to try to cover all scenarios within that time frame. This next slide shows the diverse mix of generation over the two-day peak, including OUC's ownership of nuclear, coal, natural gas, combustion turbines, also CT's running on number 2 oil. It also shows in the not so visible slim green sliver landfill gas, and then also in the yellow solar. You will note that solar was helpful in driving down some of the average system costs. However, the solar came on after the coldest part of the period, which was right after sunrise, right before sunrise. So you'll see that the solar is filling in the gaps between the peaks, but was not in this instance helpful on the peak which occurred before sunrise. Usually in the summer, solar is helpful on peak in the 4 and 5 o'clock hour. Winter scenarios provide a different peaking cadence to the grid than summer.
So why don't you just expand a little bit on that as you think about the seasonality associated with your comment? Why don't you expand a little more on why does the commercial set the peak in the summer, and why does the residential set the peak in the winter? More so as you think about the air conditioning load, right? In the summertime, it's driven primarily by the businesses, as most people, of course, are at work during perhaps the hottest part of the day. In the winter time, as we think about the residential customers, we think about perhaps the strip heat. As you look at that previous slide, basically what happens when we all get out of bed, we generally go to the thermostat because the house is a bit cold. Yeah. And so when you do that across the entire system based on our residential, you see that peak in the early morning time frame, then you perhaps see it go down, and then what happens in the evening when we all come back home, we're back, with our families and dinner and all those other things, you see it happen there. So it is a continuous balance for OUC because you have different sectors that set the peak in different seasons. Commercial sets the peak in the summer, residential sets the peak in the winter.
Thanks for helping me with that, Clint. Also, if you'll notice, the hourly generation is several hundred megawatts higher on this slide than the prior slide or 2 slides ago. And the reason for that is OUC was a net contributor of energy to the power pool, so we were helping power pool reliability. And on Monday, we were helping state reliability. OUC gets compensated for that, and therefore that also helps manage costs for OUC customers. So this slide depicts the morning hours of Sunday, February 1st, which proved to be the most difficult portion, even though the load was higher the following day. The green line represents the power pool's net position. Net in this case means the balance of generation and load. The blue line depicts the shortfall in generation when compared to load. So you'll see the faint gray line in the middle. When the blue line goes below, it means we are deficient and someone is assisting the power pool. As you can see, we began experiencing a shortfall of generation as part of the pool around 5 a.m. Generating units that were slated to come online for the morning peak as part of the power generation stack, some of them tripped on startup. Around 7 a.m. during the coldest part of the morning before sunrise, it was between 24 and 25 degrees with a wind chill of 9, I believe Linda mentioned. 2 of the existing combined cycle, non-OUC owned combined cycles that had been online for several days also tripped. This was driven primarily of instrumentation and sensors freezing up, and therefore the control systems proactively protecting the generation units by shutting down. By around 8 a.m., the power pool was short 542 megawatts of generation. OUC, as the agent of the power pool, earlier in the hour at around 7:25, declared an energy emergency alert to the external reliability coordinator. Members of the power pool that were deficient were facing imminent load shed. Again, so not OUC, but other utilities within the power pool. OUC, as the agent, was in charge of coordinating the rolling load shed for those utilities, and based on the conditions at the time, the OUC circuits were going to be spared of those rolling blackouts. Fortunately, with the energy emergency alert declaration, the pool was able to procure emergency replacement power from other utilities in the Florida Reliability Coordinator Group. The market was frozen. There were no transactions to be had within those morning hours, but the emergency declaration allows other utilities to sell non-firm emergency replacement as long as they have it. Those non-firm sales can be clawed back if they experience a unit trip and can no longer provide that emergency assistance. In that event, the load shed would have progressed. So we're very fortunate that emergency power was available from other utilities. This emergency transaction is represented by the orange line of the graph. During the morning hours, many other utilities have similar challenges with their generating units. So a tough part of this is we don't know all the other utilities' real-time positions, but we're fortunate that there were other entities. And so OUC was helping the power pool with our excess generation, and the state of Florida was also helping the power pool, which we are a part of, to make the generation and load balance. Finally, the green line represents the net of the blue and the orange. Next slide. So switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about fuel price volatility. So natural gas prices were elevated starting on January 23rd all the way through February 2nd, peaking at about $65 per MMBTU at a location called Citygate. Citygate is essentially the import point for Florida and sets the market. There were some there were some trades between entities as high as $78 per MMBTU. Now, to put that in perspective, most of the winter average gas prices were between $3 and $4, so this was a significant escalation. The prior winter peak within the 5-year span, the past 5 years, for natural gas price, which we considered extreme volatility at the time, was $12 an MMBTU. This happened in 2022 at the onset of the Russia and Ukraine conflict, and you may recall that Nord Stream 2 was destroyed during that time frame, which led to a surge of exports of LNG, thus impacting price and putting significant pressure on natural gas prices. And many Florida utilities had emergency fuel adjustments as a result of that. So again, $12 in that period and $65 in this event.
So Attila, just, to expand, the $65 was representative of the spot market. So to the extent, as a utility, if you weren't already hedged, you could be exposed to that. Or to the extent you don't have the ability to do some other form of fuel switching or to have some other types of generation, you would be exposed to that. So from between the flexibility in our generation portfolio and between our hedging, we were not exposed to that spot market of the $65. But it does show you what was out there and what some could have been exposed to.
Sure, I will get into the weighted cost of generation. So I think this slide depicts the OUC's position. I'll start out with mentioning that currently OUC's retail fuel rate is $47.67 a megawatt hour. During this event, our coal units were generating as baseload at about $42 a megawatt hour, and our combined cycle weighted cost of gas is around $101. Our peaker with weighted average cost of gas was $181, and our peaker units, which were forced to run on oil, were about $183. So as a reference point to that, if you were exposed to the spot market combined cycle on market price gas, so $65 an MMBTU would have been $545, and peakers on natural gas would have been $1,000 a megawatt hour. The highest unit in the pool, which set the clearinghouse price, was around $1,500, and spot prices with the very few trades that occurred were as high as $2,000 a megawatt hour. So significantly higher than the retail fuel rate.
Excuse me.
Yes,
you have
and
a
that was
question?
because of your pre-planning, you're being prepared. What helped? It appears as if you've got a great plan in place. Could you elaborate on that? It looks you guys are doing a great job here.
Certainly. So the mix of generation resource types shown in the prior slide is one significant contributing factor. The second second component is that we hedged about 50% of our natural gas years in advance, and then we also buy spot market month ahead. So the weighted average combined is significantly lower here in the spot because we were only exposed to about 5% of our natural gas consumed being at spot prices. This is a great story. This is something that proves the value of the hedging program, proves the value of the generation mix, and also the rest of it can be absorbed by the rate stabilization fund. We do not anticipate I'm not the CFO, but we do not anticipate a rate increase associated with fuel from this event. I believe one other utility this week was already in the news indicating that they were going to have a fuel rate adjustment. This is something that I think we were able to avoid through this event with proper planning and a good diverse resource mix.
Thank you.
And I'll expand even further. Certainly that was related to the natural gas fuel and some things we've put in place. I think, these events are a bit unpredictable.
Right.
You move into sort of 1 in 20 year type events. You're hopeful that everything you've planned for, everything is going to line up. Tremendous credit goes to our resources, in the field, the power plants. Our resources were running and maintained, and that's a really important piece. If you look perhaps in other situations, The generation was there, but for some reason in the moment, it did result in tripping offline for someone, right? And so we were just very fortunate. This was a fantastic couple days, for the OUC fleet, and we were able to maintain those units. They were there as planned. We didn't have to go buy replacement power, where then you see some of these, much higher prices for those that perhaps were a little bit short, or perhaps their unit didn't run quite as optimally as they were hoping for. The market demonstrated from replacement to be relatively expensive.
I think there was quite a few affirmative items that you voted on today. Here's a list of previous agenda items that were approved and invested in the form of capital by OUC in the years leading up to this event. First of all, engineering services for winterization of our power plants. And as a result of that, investments made, for example, in heat tracing equipment at Stanton B, and then also the OGS units. In addition to that, investments in light oil storage upgrades at Indian River and OGS enabled us to run number 2 oil, which was a significantly lower operating cost than the spot market gas, which is important from a cost perspective, but it was also important from a fuel delivery standpoint. There were challenges with the fuel delivery systems in the state of Florida, and this helped us solve 2 problems with 1 investment. I would also like to indicate that the purchase of OGS was a significant enabler here in us having adequate reserve margin for the OUC customers and adequate reserve margin to make some wholesale, thereby contributing to the reliability of the power pool and the grid. The power pool on Sunday and the overall Florida grid and other entities outside of our power pool on Monday. So a little bit of a clearer picture on the reserve margins. Within our power pool, our desired reserve margin is 15%. Sorry, down at the bottom there. Our desired reserve margin is 15%. On Sunday, February 1st, across the top row, you can see that the OUC reserve margin was about 20% at 339 megawatts. The power pool reserve margin, this is not the plan number, but the actual number based on unit trips, was negative 13% or 461 megawatts. And then on so we helped the power pool on Sunday, and then on Monday the 2nd, our reserve margin jumped to 37.5%, and the pool was also at 19%. So some of the pool members were fortunate to recover some of their financial losses from Sunday by being net contributors to state reliability on Monday. There was a heroic effort in making adjustments with the power plants, making some operational decisions, and running the power plants through the night, getting them started during the day, and having a different approach for day 2 of the winter event, which proved to be successful.
So the fundamental benefit of a reserve margin is that it requires each utility to have an extra 15% of what you need to serve your customers. We all have an extra amount of generation. A little bit of the point that I mentioned before, sometimes, again, these are mechanical pieces of equipment, sometimes it just doesn't go the way you're hoping. And so knowing that each of us as utilities around the state just have a little bit of extra, in times of the emergency that Attila mentioned earlier, we can lean on each other as a state to make sure as a state we perform well. That is always an important goal. And so because of this reserve margin, I believe the investor owners have a 20%, correct? They're required to the PSC to have a 20% reserve margin. So knowing that each of us have just a little bit more than what we need to serve our retail, that's how we all sort of lean on each other in the short term.
Thank you. Just one additional layer of detail. When a power pool member gets below 10% reserve margin, they are required to purchase the difference from the power pool. And when the power pool as a whole gets roughly below 5% reserve margin, that's when the emergency energy alert declaration can be made. Before I move on from the slide, I will note that in prior years, OUC has also benefited from the power pool arrangement. We did have some forced outages, some equipment failures in the summer of 2023, and we were the recipients of that replacement energy from other power pool members. So it works both ways. So some critical impacts observed during the event, some challenges. Again, extreme natural gas price volatility. And in addition to that, natural gas pipeline constraints during peak hours forced fuel switching for several OUC and power pool plants. So basically, in the summer, solar and storage is part of the resource mix for the state. It was significantly less of a factor in a winter peaking event prior to sunrise, and the gas pipeline operators were having trouble maintaining gas pressure, the required gas pressure at the power plant locations across the state. They made calls and basically, which resulted in hourly scheduling, which meant a reduction in natural gas supplies at the worst possible time when the grid is peaking. So in preparation for that, utilities were given advance warning, and utilities had to switch to other fuel sources. If other fuel sources were not available, the utilities would have been in significantly worse shape. Hourly and instantaneous peaks occurred before sunrise. We believe that this event also changes the dynamics and the economics of battery storage. So it's great to have this data point right as we're going through the analysis within our EIRP. And that includes the cost benefit analysis of grid scale storage and virtual power plants. So all of that is in the analysis of the EIRP. So another challenge, while the state of Florida was able to meet all customer load requirements, a few entities, including our power pool, were unable to meet utility-specific reserve margins on February 1. And OUC was able to meet customer load, but as the agent for FMPP on Energy Emergency Alert 3 was declared to procure emergency power to the FMPP generation shortage the same day. What went right? All OUC owned and operated units were available for this event. Dual fuel units were critical. OUC and FMPP had tools to mitigate pipeline constraints and natural gas price spikes. Utilities across the state coordinated and assisted each other during an emergency alert declaration. All Florida utilities avoiding rolling load shed. This is massive, and it's great that we're able to do that on a summer peak, but more importantly, in a 20-year event such as this. The question is, how do we plan for the next 20-year event? What are the lessons learned? And what investments are the best mix of reliability, resiliency, and cost for our customers? Investments in fuel diversity, dual fuel system, and plant winterization were significant factors in avoiding a load shed event for OUC customers and enabled us again to be net contributors to the grid overall as an organization. OUC and FMPP power generation employees were extremely resilient while working in extreme wind chill conditions and were successful in repairing all critical units prior to the Monday morning peak on February 2nd. So some new winter data points. With the state natural gas pipeline delivery systems, it is apparent that increasing the dependency on dual fuel systems for OUC, the power pool, and the Florida grid is important, an important consideration for long-term forecasting. You can procure additional capacity, but it is extremely expensive to procure gas transmission pipeline capacity for 8 hours of the year in a 20-year event. So other solutions have to be adopted and thought through in order to make sure that we deliver good value for our customers. We have to determine the best path to manage hourly natural gas pipeline constraints as described above. New financial analysis data points for utility scale battery storage driven by constrained generation and fuel capacity. Utility scale storage is prevalent in many other balancing authorities, but it's also worth noting that those balancing authorities retail prices are significantly higher. Here, that trade-off still does not exist, but this, when having to add new resources, now the economics are different, and this brings the parity much closer than before. So it's a great data point to have as we go through our EIRP analysis. I think this winter event also highlighted the value of the ERMOC hedging policy and should incorporate lessons learned from recent winter events as we look to adjust our strategy to reflect the future portfolio resource mix for our utility. This event certainly reinforced the value of natural gas hedging and fuel rate stabilization target funds. Again, this reemphasized that winter peaks specifically are highly dependent on dispatchable generation during pre-daylight hours. A new consideration here is also the value and effectiveness of behind-the-meter generation and the need for clear and effective customer expectations. I think this highlights the tremendous work put into our rate restructuring, our peak shift, and the tools available to us through that process. So it reemphasized many years of thought and work on the rate structures of the future and how to implement them to solve for not only summer peaking events, but also winter grid events such as this. I think with that, I will turn it back over to Linda, unless there's
Any other questions for Attila?
I'd like to say thank you. Great presentation. Thank you. And it really helped me being new to understand how you all prepare or how you prepare for situations like this. Even though this hasn't occurred since 2010, it appears as if you were very well prepared. May I ask a quick question? This was a lot, but it was great. How are we sharing this with the community? Letting them know what you've done, if this does happen again, that you're looking at lessons learned, because I think that needs to be shared. That's just my opinion with the community that this happened. There were some that were affected by this, either in a positive or a negative way, but we're ready and we're planning for it. What do you have in place to share that with the community?
I think that's a great question. Communication is not my strongest asset.
So
but
maybe this is time for Ms. Ferroni to come.
Yes, I think so.
Great transition.
Thank you, Linda.
Bring it home, Linda.
I love a good tee up. Thank you. Let me go through a few pages and then come back to that question. So Attila, thanks. Much appreciated. So I'm going to shift our attention to how we prepared our customers in our community. You know, certainly we're used to cold snaps here during the winter, but we are not used to extended, long, hard freezes. So we knew that we needed to really beef up our public outreach. It needed to be comprehensive, it needed to be robust, and we needed to get out ahead of the actual cold weather. So we targeted a public outreach campaign. It launched on Monday, January 26th, so that week prior to the event. And it really focused on preparing our customers for this cold weather event. Messaging was tailored to different groups. We included residential, commercial, our electric customers, our water customers, even our electric vehicle drivers, our solar customers. We wanted our guidance to be relevant, specific, and actionable. Otherwise, it's difficult for them to follow along and understand because it is a lot. Our key emphasis was on energy demand awareness, highlighting how heating homes during cold, extreme cold, it's really different than cooling homes when it's hot out. Clint pointed that out earlier. But we had some very specific graphics that we created for this event to help our customers understand that. We believe it made a difference. We provided practical steps to reduce energy demand during those peak hours of 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. and just helping customers understand why that's the peak. But lowering thermostats just a few degrees, delaying EV charging, postponing the use of large appliances, and hot water intensive activities. People don't necessarily think about that. Even cold water plumbing reminders, just to help our residential and commercial customers remember how to protect their plumbing from freezing circumstances. And our safety messaging, we never forget that. Safety is first for us. So space heaters, electric blankets, downed lines, and there was high wind. All of those things caused us to really make sure we didn't lose that focus on our communications as well. Now I'm going to talk about what we did before the event and during the event. So from January 26th through the 30th, as that extreme cold approached, our team launched a coordinated multi-channel public outreach campaign to reach all of our different customer segments in different ways with timely and actionable guidance. So we deployed 5 targeted emails to residential customers, commercial customers, like I said, other specific groups like EV customers. We had 2 broadcast alerts that were delivered via email, voice, and text. On social media, we published 19 posts on Facebook, X, Instagram, and Nextdoor. That alone generated 84,000 impressions, and it was supported by some paid media to reinforce that as well and make sure we reached all of our customers. And media coverage was strong, with 26 earned media mentions totaling 514,000 impressions, amplifying those safety and the preparedness across messaging across multiple news channels. So let me talk about. Sure.
Go back a second. I think that piece there is one of the most important parts of this story, because no one could understand why in the summer there's no problem. But if you look at the 44-degree gap between what you need in the winter to what you need in the summer, that says it all. And very few people even think of that. So when I would say that to people, because now, of course, I'm an OUC expert, they would just stop for a second and say, oh my gosh, I never thought about it. It's double the energy needed. So I think that was perfect.
And I think during this event, some of your questions to us actually helped us rethink how we were communicating. So thank you for that. So during the event, this is now from January 31st to February 2nd. We needed to change our line a little bit. We started asking customers to safely reduce their energy demand to help protect our grid reliability. We did not ask any customers to turn off their heat. That would not be safe either. But instead, we did encourage moderate thermostat adjustments and some practical conservation tips. I will say some utilities did warn of potential outages if demand wasn't reduced, which is a perfectly valid approach during a high-risk event like this. OUC intentionally led with a calm, action-oriented guidance. We chose to lead with this partnership concept to both protect the grid and retain our customer trust, and we believe this worked. So during this period, the public information team delivered the following: 17 targeted emails to residential, commercial, water, solar customers. We had an average open rate of 53.3%, which is far above the industry average. We had 3 more broadcast alerts, again, email, voice, text. We had 22 social media posts across Facebook, X, Instagram, Nextdoor that generated about 307,000 views, again, supported by some paid media, some targeted paid media. 97 media mentions, which totaled 47.6 million impressions. So we really amped it up during the event. I will say too, at the same time, there's heroes all throughout this story, but our key accounts team and our commercial customer service teams and some of our operations folks all partnered together in direct communication with our largest commercial customers, making sure that they really understood the severity of the event. We asked them to partner with us in modifying their operations to help reduce some very large demand. So while Clint said that certainly the residential side will drive the peak, getting our some of that base almost always there kind of load from our commercial customers to reduce on a cold morning can make a big impact. They can move the needle, kind of one customer at a time. So some examples of this coordinated effort include the Greater Orlando Aviation Authority operating its backup generation. Universal moderated its operations for its chilled water system to, again, reduce energy use. Publix and Walmart's locations switching to backup generation. City of Orlando and Orange County also modifying operations and using backup generation. And then, of course, OUC ourselves moderating some of our operational usage to reduce our strain on the grid as well. So tremendous outreach and results by them. So there's some great pictures here of our OUC team. It's just really to give you an idea of what was going on across our own operations. And you can see the icy circumstances. You can see stairs that were covered in ice. And I've heard stories of what they were doing out there to make sure they were safe first. Can't go walking around on slippery surfaces. So what they had to do to make their way through just normal operations and unusual circumstances to ensure that their co-employees stayed safe, and we were able to maintain things. So we just really want to extend our appreciation to all of our employees for all the things they were prepared for and all the things they probably were not during this event. So power generation, transmission, energy and fuel portfolio management teams, they worked around the clock to monitor and stabilize the grid, ensuring we met the needs of our customers, as well as the communities that we serve through the Florida Municipal Power Pool, as Attila was describing. To our water distribution teams, they responded to over 398 water incidents and frozen line calls with exceptional care and expertise. And boy, don't our customers love seeing those experts show up. Their work helped protect customers' homes and businesses and maintain service continuity during all these really challenging conditions. Also, to acknowledge the work of the Public Information Office, their rapid coordination, clear communications, strong relationships with customers were essential to drive that awareness and get them to partner with us in those conservation efforts. And of course, our incident command team leading us through all this entire event. Across the organization, our employees demonstrated resilience, teamwork, and that deep commitment that they always do, rising to the occasion during these kind of high-stress times. So thank you, OUC, for making us the reliable one. Had to look this way. Normally I only talk to you, but I can't help it. I gotta look this way for a minute. And finally, we have to extend our sincere thanks to our customers and our community. Gosh, did they rise to the occasion for their cooperation with us during this historic event. From large businesses adjusting operations, to residents just being mindful of their energy use, the collection actions, you can see it paid off in a meaningful way. So we recognize a call to conserve, especially during an extreme cold event. It's a big ask that we make, but people, again, they rose to the occasion. The partnership between OUC and the community, it means the world to us. To protect the grid reliably together during this time of unprecedented strain was amazing. We're truly grateful for all of that support. I don't know if you had any further, I think you had a great question about how do we communicate this to our customers. I think that's a great idea. We've been busy, but I think that's a great moment to step back and reflect and figure out how we do tell a story around this. So I think that's a wonderful idea.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Yeah.
Happy
All
to
right.
take any other questions.
No. Well, I'm just going to say I am an OUC customer, and I appreciated all the texts and all the messages, and I do follow rules or people die. So I did take my thermostat down to 68 that I had never done in my life, and it was the better night's sleep I've ever had, so it stays there now. And I just think following the recommendations, I felt like, to your point, that we were in tandem, we were partners on this, and I was part of the solution. So bravo, good job.
Great job. Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's worth a round of applause. I'll again close the subject out that I am extremely proud of Team OUC. It's been quite a while since we've been hit by something like that. Again, you are dealing with mechanical devices, and sometimes they have a little bit of a mind of their own. And so, again, all the way around from the field, the customer, the communication, couldn't be more proud of the OUC team, during this event. And so it was a shining moment for OUC for those couple days. So I do want to thank everyone here and the other 1,300 employees that were a part of this, and the customers that partner with us too. And lastly, I'll just close by saying welcome aboard, Commissioner Williams and Commissioner Brown.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for your services to OUC in this community. I know we've had a chance to have some onboarding, but I look forward to more onboarding. And I just want to say welcome aboard. I know it's been quite a meeting, a lot of information. We'll do some more onboarding for each of you, but welcome aboard and look forward to working with each of you. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. So on that note, do you have any comments or questions?
Just thank you. Great information today. I'm new, but great presentations. Thank you for that. And also, I would like to thank your team, your onboarding team. Very professional, on point, answered all of my questions, phone calls. I really appreciate that. Thank you to each and every one of you that I've talked with. And your assistant, Paula, fantastic.
She's the best.
Dynamic. Now I understand why whenever I ask to talk to Paula. Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Commissioner Brown?
She said it all.
All right. Well, I agree. Paula is phenomenal. But with that, without objection, this meeting is adjourned at 3:54. We're out by 4, folks.